Hey friends, welcome to Beyond the Point. This is Allie, your podcast host. And as always, I am so excited to have you guys here today. Today, I have a guest on the podcast that I am very excited about because I get questions all the time about how your pointe shoes are fitting. And the honest truth is that I can assist you to make the most out of your exercises for pointe. And there's about 50% of the time that I feel my corrections and exercises make a huge difference in the way that your pointe shoes fit and show up on stage. But the other 50% of the time, it really comes down to having a professional who knows how to fit your shoes correctly. And yes, there are professionals for this. It's very exciting. So I found one that I've known for quite a bit that has had huge success and is literally all over the US, works with professional dancers and beginning dancers from West Coast to East Coast. She is fantastic and I love her to pieces, and her information is priceless. So let's dive right in and we'll jump into our pointe shoe talk. So today I have Josephine Lee from the Pointe Shop joining us, and so happy to have her here. She's Skyping in from LA, but traveling all over the world. That's just what she does. So thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on and sharing your knowledge and how you've gotten where you are, because you have quite a story, I think, of how you've ended up here. And you are, especially if you're local here in California, the Pointe Shop is where you go. This is the shop you go to if you want to get your pointe shoes fitted well. And Josephine also travels a ton and reaches people all over the U.S. a ton. Yeah, if you could see her right now, her eyes got big. Like, yes. So
I always say I'm basically homeless because I travel so much.
I feel that way. It's so hard to catch you while you're here or there or wherever we are. But if you follow along on Instagram, I feel like I know exactly where you're at. I've even texted people and said, "Oh my gosh, she's in your city. Go find her." So
that's amazing.
It's the best way to catch you.
That's right.
Let's jump into things. So, Josephine, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? How did you get where you are today? Were you a dancer? What kind of world did you grow up in? What's brought you to this point?
So, of course, I was a dance kid. I danced all the way through until 18. So I think a lot of us in our age group, Allie, we kind of grow up dancing. We love it. And then we kind of went in a different direction while preserving the passion that we had. Yeah. So I think we kind of grow up to become the people that we needed when we were dancing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I was growing up, my mom actually had dance stores. So I grew up fitting pointe shoes since I was 15 years old. And at that time, my mom was the go-to person for pointe shoe fittings. She still kind of is for Southern California. And so I grew up doing a lot of pointe shoe fittings. I was taught by many different types of pointe shoe fitters and brands and models. So that's how I basically got started as a pointe shoe fitter when I was 15. And I didn't think that I was going to continue on with this type of profession after I graduated from college, but it just kind of naturally led me here. And I found out that pointe shoe fitting was a more rare skill than I thought it was going to be. So I started to have people that are traveling 4 or 5 hours to get fitted for pointe shoes. So I was like, oh, you know what? If there's 15 of you, then I'm going to come over to you and do pointe shoe fittings there. So that's how I started traveling. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what it is. And in 2014, I got rid of my shop and I just started doing pointe shoe fittings, and that's all we do now.
Yeah. Yeah. So your shop here in Southern California, it's exclusively pointe shoe fittings. It's all by reservation, right? Like you have to make an appointment to come in. And exactly. You have a team of specialists that I can honestly say anyone who's told me they've gotten their shoes there, every single person, no matter it was you or someone else on your team, they've walked out with the best experience and their best fitting pointe shoes for that time. It's happened across the board. So it's really a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. And as you said, I wonder if now people are getting better at fitting pointe shoes. But I will say that when I was dancing, I look back and go, oh my gosh, like I had some pointe shoes that were not fit well. Like nobody told me that this isn't normal, that it, that like the shank shouldn't slip around, or you shouldn't have a baggy heel, or that it should feel somewhat comfortable as pointe shoes could feel, right? There were so many things that nobody addressed with me, and my feet probably paid the price for it.
Exactly. And that's the problem with just the ballet world in general. Our culture teaches us to push through any type of discomfort or pain. And we just think that's normal. So I actually had probably one of the worst times in pointe shoes. And I still, even within our company, I am the most difficult fit. So I just suffered quietly without even letting anyone know, thinking that that was normal. So I think there's this education now that's going out that you don't have to suffer, and these should be supporting you, and these should be teaching you to become a better dancer. So I think the more people know that, I think it forces our industry to become better and rise to that occasion.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of pain do you think is normal? Because let's be honest, pointe shoes are a little bit painful, right? Like there could be blisters, you're standing on your toes all day. There's going to be some discomfort, but what would you consider a pain that's not from a ill-fitted shoe?
So it shouldn't have excruciating pain where you don't want to dance anymore. Of course, it needs to be fitted pretty tightly, and it's going to be tighter than any other shoe that you've worn because they have to be fitted like a cast. Mm-hmm. Nothing should be able to move around too much inside of your shoes. Now, if you're constantly getting bruised toenails and your bunions are just killing you, and there's knuckling happening and all of your knuckles are scraped off, those are not normal. These are things that we have accepted as normal in the ballet world. And I think that's something that we need to address, because a normal pain should just be pressure. And yes, you can get a blister here and there, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of models and shanks and vamp and width and shape. And there's too many variations now to have to suffer that much. There is a solution for you. Yeah. Technology, still has a long way to go in pointe shoes, but it has come so far since the beginning of pointe shoe times. So there's no reason why dancers should have to suffer.
Yeah, so I saw a video that was on the Pointe Shop Instagram, and you were with a little beginning pointe dancer, and you were talking about the redness on her knuckles. And
that's right.
I know from the more of the physical training side that we want to point the toes long, no crunchy knuckles, that kind of stuff. But I thought it was interesting, and just a testament to you and your other pointe shoe fitters, that you're looking at it saying you shouldn't have that redness on your toes. That means you're bearing down or you're settling in your shoe. We can do something to fix that. And even though I know that, I was like, my mind is blown. It was so good. It was so good. And those are the types of things that are little nuances that I know I didn't get when I was fitting shoes. And I think that we could say some of the other shoe fitters just around the world. But, you really do need to find somebody who is specifically into this. It's a big deal.
Yeah. And I think that's what I love about the relationships that I have with you, with other physical therapists or doctors or any other dance specialists that help these dancers get stronger, because I can only give them the tool, mm-hmm. and I can recognize the things that are doing incorrectly. But half of the work is, I would say maybe 70% of the work is the dancer, and they have to build the strength. They have to build the stamina. They have to be able to build the flexibility in order for them to be good. So I can provide the tools. I can point them in the right direction to go, hey, go see this person so you can fix this issue. Mm-hmm. So that's why I love this relationship that we have, because there's just different components to fix the same problems.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we got to attack it from so many different angles. It's just like if you're trying to build muscle, then yes, you have to do certain exercises, and you're going to have to do them a certain number of times a week. But you also have to make sure that you're putting in the fuel that will then allow you to build muscle. So I can work on the pointed toe, but if you get in your pointe shoes and they're not supporting you correctly, all that work just goes out the window, and that can be from the other side too. So
exactly. Yeah, we definitely have to attack it from every angle. Like sometimes because it's pain related or because it is strength related, I do my best to minimize it so that the dancer just doesn't want to quit. But I'm basically putting a Band-Aid on an issue that should be addressed along with the dance specialist to strengthen those muscles so that I don't have to give them a Band-Aid to put on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel like, what's the line for you in finding the shoe that will assist them, let's say, to get over their box? I know that some dancers are having a harder time getting over their box. So there's things that we can find in different pointe shoes to assist them to get over. But then there's also that strength aspect that they need the strength to be able to get over, or the strength to be able to roll down through their shoe. So what's a balance that you're looking for to see, like, okay, this aids you enough, but doesn't take away from you having to learn how to strengthen and roll through your shoe and that kind of stuff?
So getting over your box specifically has several different issues, as you obviously would know already. The strength and the flexibility and the ankle movement. Sometimes it's the foot shape. There's a lot of different reasons why dancers don't get over their shoes, but it's kind of a double-edged sword, because if I give them a shoe that they cannot get over in, it actually hinders them from learning to do that. So if that is one of the biggest problems that I'm running into, that's my main problem that I'm going to try to fix. So I'm not, at that point, I'm not looking at the shape. I'm not looking how pretty the shoe is. I'm not looking at any of those other things. I just want the dancer to get over their pointe shoes, because once they get over, they can start actually strengthening and stretching their ankles to get over their pointe shoes. So I definitely I definitely try to look for what is the biggest problem right now. I try to fix that so that the dancer can start to really develop whatever it is that they need to do. I think that pointe shoes can definitely be a tool to strengthen and gain more muscle and more flexibility. So a properly fitting shoe can make a huge difference. Along with that, they need to have those exercises from someone like you, Allie, so that they can do that without the pointe shoes as well, without the help of a shoe that is helping them.
Right. So what would you say, and maybe there's not a general, maybe this is specific to each dancer, but what's like the number one thing they need to be able to do in their first year of pointe? So they come into you to get their first pair of pointe shoes. The thing they need to be able to do in the pointe shoe is it get over their box? Is it roll through their shoe? What is it that's like that number one thing?
Oh, that's tough.
I know it probably depends on each dancer.
It totally depends on each dancer, but I really look at how they're getting over their box, because one, I don't want them to learn to balance in the incorrect place in the platform, because it's just muscle memory.
Right.
And it's a mental memory. So you learn to balance in the incorrect spot. So I definitely want to get them in the middle of the platform. And then two, I want them to be able to roll through to actually get stronger on pointe. And I would say the number three is definitely alignment. But those three are it's like a very close 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. And it's just a balancing act. It's like adding just a tiny bit more salt when you're cooking makes a huge difference, or you can ruin it, right? So there's just that balance. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when I have dancers, so they'll bring their shoes in and we'll work on certain things in their shoes, especially for them to then be able to go home and do homework. And there's probably half the time I can make adjustments and say, oh, do it like this, and it fixes a problem. And then there's half the time that honestly I'm like, oof, I think you need to go find somebody who's a professional, because, you know, I danced on pointe, but it's just an area that once you really have to figure out the details. You have to, I just assume you've worked with so many people and you have so much experience. And again, watching some of your videos on Instagram, as you're working with professionals and you're talking about what they specifically do, I'm like, I would have never thought of that. There's so many things. You have so many little nuggets that they pop up for each individual person. And that's
so
that's
custom.
a professional. So that's why she's on here, guys.
Yeah, it's really fun because it's so rare to have anything, one, handmade in this day and age, and two, have something that you can customize for your own needs. And I think that's becoming a little bit more cool now, where like a lot of things are becoming more personalized and individualized. But pointe shoes, with pointe shoes, we have done that for 100 years for ballerinas. So there's a lot of little things that you can pick up from each individual person. Obviously, you have to just figure it out with trial and error.
Yeah. So here's an age-old question for me. Why do you think that pointe shoes are made to break? Why, with all the technology that we have, do we not have more pointe shoes that are longer lasting, that can withstand all the beat up that professional dancers are putting on them?
Well, for me, I really love a slower breaking shoe, or not a slower breaking shoe, but a breaking shoe, because it gives the dancer the time to be able to go from a hard shoe, which is going to be a little bit more supportive with a little less roll through, and progress into a softer shoe where they are able to roll through a little bit better. So that progression and that strengthening process is going to be a little bit more, slow to go, instead of like, it's always going to be the same. So if we have a shoe that never breaks, it's always going to feel the same. So there's no progression. So I really enjoy that for dancers in training. Now, there are some newer technologies out there, obviously, now that has the longer lasting shoes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But it's just, there's a time and place for each one of those things.
Mm-hmm. So maybe for our dancers and also for the parents to think about, if the shoe has its progression from brand new and super hard to soft and getting towards that mushy state, I guess. If you're looking at it, dancers, and saying like, okay, right now it's really hard for me to roll through my shoe. So that's going to be my focus for the next week and a half or 2 weeks. And then you get into the next spot and you're like, okay, now it's like me getting over my box and balancing and being able to figure out the little nuances on top of my box. And then it's the strength of the soft shoe, and I'm sure there's other things in there. But that's kind of a nice way to think about that progression of your shoe, and that you're going to be going through this for the rest of your dancing life if you can really tune in and start to realize what you're feeling in each progression as we go, instead of just, I can't roll through. My shoes are too soft. It's like one or the other for a lot of dancers.
Exactly. So yeah, I do like that progression, because ideally the dancer will start to get stronger as the shoe starts to get weaker. And it just gives you a nice little step.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What are some things that you see dancers coming in who've had shoes for a while, and you come in and you're like, oh, this is definitely something we need to fix, like a baggy heel or something like that? What are a few of those things that you see for our parents and dancers to be looking at?
Well, it's definitely, if the pointe shoe should be fitted like a cast, like I said before. So there's definitely shouldn't be any gaping. There shouldn't be any spaces between your foot and the shoe. Now, in certain cases, the dancer, like most feet, when you go up on pointe, it naturally shrinks. So there is a little bit of bagginess when you go up on pointe. In certain cases, the dancer's foot shrinks so much that it looks like 2 sizes too big when they go up on pointe. Now, in those cases, those are a little bit more difficult. But just overall, if the shoe fits well and if it's safe and comfortable, it should look very streamlined. So anything that's like weird, that's sticking out, if you can clearly see all of your joints sticking out of your shoes, or if you see all of your knuckles, or like your heel is like not even in the place of the shank or whatever, anything that's not streamlined or straight, that would be an issue.
And then you're also looking at, there's so many different ways to sew your shoes and do those little enhancements that we were talking about. But just even I feel like lately, like people are sewing their shoes differently than when I was younger. Some of it's very the same. Like some things never change, but there's different ways to work on getting the shoe to support your arch a little bit more, or stay in line with your heel, or I saw they have those like elastic ribbons now that are a circle. I have no idea how you use those still to this day, but there's all these different things. And as I listen to other dancers talk about the way they fit their shoes, that's just as important as the pointe shoe, because you can kind of make or break it there.
That's absolutely true. And this is a tough one because each dancer is going to feel differently in with the placement of their elastic and their ribbons. Like you can move the elastic just maybe a micro millimeter like forward, and suddenly you start to feel like your tendonitis is like bothering you. Or if like you sew it in a certain place and it cuts off your blood flow, then it's going to give you like a certain other thing that's wrong with your foot. So it's very different. Like every human body is so different.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it's so important for the dancers to sew their own pointe shoes. Because when they always get that sewn on by somebody else, you actually don't have a chance to figure that out on your own. As opposed to if you continue to do trial and error where you're sewing your own pointe shoes and you're like, oh, so let me try pushing it back a little bit. Now my heel's staying on better, or pushing it forward a little bit, and that relieves the pressure. Or on certain shoes, I know that I have to do just one loop, and certain other shoes I need to cross. So these are all things that you have to kind of experiment and figure it out on your own. And if someone's always going to do it for you, it's just not going to work.
You were reading my mind. You were totally reading my mind. I was just going to say, we need to be sewing our own pointe shoes.
Definitely.
For exactly what you said, and your own control, but then also just so that you learn to do the things for yourself. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
Dancers, This is your craft. You need to figure out how to make everything work for you. And parents, you don't need to do it. You have too many things to do. Like, let your kids sew their own pointe shoes. Let them figure it out. I remember the first maybe 2 years of my pointe shoes. I had to re-sew my pointe shoes so many times because just what you said. Like, I'd get into the studio and be like, uh-oh, this feels really bad. And so we'd go home and I'd have to unstitch it. And I used so much floss trying to sew those pointe shoes in the right place. But after a while, I figured it out. And then, of course, I would switch brands and we have to figure it out again. But that's just part of it. It's just what happens. Just what happens.
It's really a never-ending journey because, like, I work with a ton of professionals, and a lot of the dancers that I do even the pointe shoe hack with, we do a pointe shoe fitting after, and we sometimes figure out a different model or brand or maker or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really a never-ending journey. Your feet are constantly changing, even if they stop growing. Your technique is changing. Your alignment is changing. Your preference for your ribbons and elastic is going to change as well. So yeah, it's just forever.
Yeah. Do you run into studios that have a certain preference for shoes? And if so,
all the time.
I know. I knew that was going to be the answer. But what do you suggest? Because there are studios that I've run into that absolutely there is no other shoe except the one that they suggest, and there's no room for adjustment if you're in that studio. But there's other studios that it seems like they prefer something, but maybe there's a way to find a shoe that fits that a little bit better. What do you suggest for the parents that are maybe in that situation?
So it's funny because I just finished one of those like in Oregon, but I would hope that I would have gained enough trust with the studio and the teacher. Of course, I will skew a little. I will do the best I can to get them the shoes that they prefer. However, if it doesn't work for that dancer, and it happens obviously because everyone's different, I have a conversation with the teacher or the studio. Like, look, I know that you love the shoe or whatever, but it's just not working out for this dancer. And most of the time they make an exception. So that's the best case scenario. I still work with very, very prestigious schools that prefer one brand. And I cannot get around that. So I do the best I can with the brands that I have that I'm able to work with. But I think even then, a lot of them are coming around as well. So we are getting better just as a whole, as a dance, community. but I just do the best I can because I know that, they're still not going to get fitted well if they don't go with me. So,
it
doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's very true. And what you said about the dance community, we're trying. There are some people who are leading the charge, and I think you would fall into that category. And, I'm hoping that we're going to have people on the podcast that are always leading the charge with that stuff. But the cookie cutterness of ballet, it still very much exists, but it's starting to change very slowly, that not every dancer needs to be the same professional principal dancer from 50 years ago. There's room to be an individual and to be a sugar cookie that has a little frosting on it instead of just instead of just a chocolate chip cookie, So that is coming through in our pointe shoes also.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I embrace that whole thing, is that it's a way of fitting pointe shoes, but it's also a philosophy of what we believe in as well. It's the customization and the individual aspect of every human being and every special kid. Everybody deserves to have some kind of individualized customization.
Yeah.
So, and I think dance needs to follow suit as well.
Yep, it absolutely does. And I know I see this a lot in working with the dancers that come in here. It's we're looking at their arabesque, and they have been taught such rigid rules about what an arabesque is. Whether that's you have 100% square shoulders and hips, or you allow yourself to open, and there's no room for air, except that if that one dancer drops their shoulder or thinks of pushing instead of pulling or whatever it is, their arabesque goes up 2 inches and they look better. It's wouldn't your teacher rather they have this arabesque than the square one that's doing exactly what they say, but it doesn't look good on your body? That's where we're pulling in these little nuances, I think, of individuality.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's very encouraging for dancers to hear that, because while we want to keep the tradition and the technique of what traditional ballet is, we really need to honor we need to honor ballet as a true art form, which is creativity, differences, and all of those things as well. So I love that you brought up that point. And I think instead of just being a tool to the choreographer, the dancers need to be interpreted as artists themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're traveling around and you're working with professionals, what type of things are you addressing that are different from a more beginner standpoint? Because I have
very different.
I know they are. So I have some dancers who come in here that will say, "Oh, I saw that so-and-so is using glue on this part of their shoe, or they're not wearing toe pads. They're using toilet paper or whatever." And I'm like, yeah, but they've been dancing for 15 years. You are in your second year of pointe. So what are some of the differences that you see for beginners work and then professionals working?
There are so many differences. It's almost like fitting a totally different species, because for dancers that are in training, there are specific things that I am working on for them to get there. So their second metatarsals are not big, as big as a professional dancer. Their bones are different, because if you've been dancing that long, their bones have, they're different than a normal human being. And the dancers that are just in training are not there yet. Yeah. So the strength is a major difference. Also, I focus a lot more on aesthetics when it comes to professional dancers, because of course we're looking at something that's on stage. It needs to be beautiful. It needs to be quiet. It needs to have that vanity aspect of pointe shoes. However, for dancers in training, I am more concerned about what that pointe shoe is going to do for them, for their technique, their alignment, their strengthening, their flexibility. So I'm really looking more at how is this pointe shoe helping them get to their goals, rather than what's the prettiest shoe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're traveling to your studios, how do you decide where you're going to go? That's what I want to know.
Well, we basically go where we're asked to come.
Yeah. No, that's great. So what are your requirements then for a studio to reach out to you and say, come to our studio?
It really depends on the distance. So obviously the West Coast is a lot easier for us to get to. I literally drive everywhere.
You do in your big car.
Yeah, my van, my little van. So, and the reason why I do that is because I have to transport my pointe shoes with me. Mm-hmm. So, if it's in the West Coast and if it's within Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and Utah, those 6 states, and Idaho sometimes. If it's within those states, we just need to have a requirement of 15 dancers in a tour. Mm-hmm. So, and I need to have at least 5 studios in that region to be able to make that trip out there. So it's a less of a requirement, but I do go on one nationwide tour where I drive all the way from California to the East Coast. I went all the way to Pittsburgh last summer.
Crazy.
And yeah, and that's a really great opportunity if the dancers are in summer intensives. Mm-hmm. So I get to hit up all of the summer intensives that are connected with ballet companies. And if they live in an area where it's very difficult for them to get pointe shoes, then it's a great opportunity for them to get fitted and see all of the brands that maybe they're not familiar with.
Yeah.
So I do one of those a year.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I know how difficult it can be to plan travel around clients. You guys, it's really hard. I want to assist so many people, and I get a lot of messages from people saying, oh, what would it take for you to come to Florida? And it's the same thing. I have a number requirement of people that it would take. And you just have to remember, like, you have to drive or fly. You have to get hotel stays. You have to pay for your time away. And by the time you do that, it's a lot of people you need to do it. So that you make it possible for people with such a small number, like, to me, that's kind of insane. It's like you're going way above and beyond.
Thank you.
That is, guys, I can't tell you how much, because that's a commitment. That is not a lot of people that you need to make her come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's so much fun, and it's so crazy. Like, just to kind of step away from ballet just in general, but like just the topic of passion. A lot of people think that it's always going to be easy if you're doing things that you're passionate about, but it's absolutely not true, because it's you can be doing something that you absolutely love and you're so passionate about, but it could be so difficult. Yeah. And it could be so challenging. Yeah. And it's like that mix of trying to figure out like how to take care of yourself and your body, which I'm still trying to figure out, and being able to service the people that you absolutely love.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I think you hit it right on the head. We tend to think as a society that passion means ease. And that I think especially in the artist realm, we think like we're full of passion. And so we just do things that we love. But there's so much that has to go into making that passion possible. And the minutia of that stuff is not always fun. And in fact, for most artists, that's the downs. Like, that's the stuff nobody wants to do. And I really think that's why a lot of people who fall more into the artistic side of life don't get their vision fully realized or fully out there, because it takes a lot of work. So I love that you're bringing that up, because that falls into all of us that are listening right now.
Absolutely. And the leg up that we have over, just the layman, like mm-hmm. on this, like just the pedestrian person on the street, is that we grew up doing something that's very difficult to do. Yeah. We did things that are not humanly possible. And we did things that we like pushed our minds and bodies to the limit. And I think that kind of translates to everything that we do in our lives. So for anybody who's listening on this podcast, like even if you don't grow up to become a dancer, like this is going to follow you forever. Like I don't really dance anymore at all. I haven't danced in over 10 years, but that same type of drive and passion and ambition and love for life and gratitude for what I am able to do, that follows you forever.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for everybody that is in this industry. And it is just, I'm inspired every day by the people that I service.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The people that show up and become leaders in this industry are magnificent. And a lot of them, I think we have such a narrow goal and mindset when we're young and training. And it should be when you have an intense goal, like becoming a dancer, you have to be very narrow minded in that goal. I believe. But then the downside to that is after you're done with that goal, for whatever reason, it can be hard to see the big picture vision. And it can be hard, I think, for some of these dancers and for myself too, to transition into how do I find that same feeling of passion and drive, but in a different area that didn't seem possible. Yep. And I've said this before on here, but I personally now feel more fulfilled and joyful and happy in my own life in the way that I'm involved in the dance community than I did when I was dancing. Do I still love dancing? Of course. Like I love, being an artist and all that stuff. But if I take a big picture look, it's more fulfilling now, but it's because I learned how to be passionate about something. So
absolutely. I am 100% with you, Allie. And I think it's funny because like when we are dancers, like I always reference myself and some of my kids reference me as their fairy godmother. Uh-huh. And that transition from being Cinderella to the fairy godmother where we are helping and we're able to become the person, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, to become the person that we needed as dancers. Like that is the greatest gift from all of the difficulties that we have gone through. Like that's why we went through it. Yeah, like, we went through all this stuff so that we can become the people that we are today. And I cannot even, like, I could cry talking about this. Like, it is, like, I'm so grateful for everything and this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're just, like we were saying about pointe shoes, they're getting better. The dance world is changing. It's evolving. It's getting better. But it is because people like you are taking your passion and you're saying, I'm going to make a difference in my passion. So we need our people. We need people in general, not just in the dance world. We need people to be more passionate about something, the thing that they're passionate about, and then follow through with it. And that goes from being passionate, I think, about your kids and their education and taking care of yourself into changing the world and technology. And it falls into every single category that passion really is a huge driver, and then following through with it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Agreed. Oh, there you go, guys. We have a little life tangent. We can't talk without having those little philosophical moments.
That's right. We're on the same page, you and I.
Yeah. So, kind of wrapping things up here, I wanted to ask you one more thing, tying us back to our pointe shoes here, though. So, what are some things that parents specifically, but dancers you need to be listening to, what can they be looking for their well-fitted pair of pointe shoes? We've talked about a lot of stuff, but can you kind of like summarize for us the things those parents should be looking for?
Yeah, it's very difficult for parents, especially the ones that haven't grown up dancing.
Yes.
So it's much less about what it looks like on the outside and much more about what the dancer is feeling on the inside. So I think the number one thing that a lot of parents should do is to check in with their dancers, because I cannot tell you how many times I spot something on a dancer where I say, is this bothering you? Or is this not fitted correctly? Or are you having a hard time? And then they break down and they tell me that there's something that's excruciatingly painful. And then the mom's just sitting there on the side like, how come you never told me any of this? So these are things that they never mention to their teachers. They never mention to their parents. Like, yesterday I was fitting and I had to text one of the teachers because I was like, hey, did you know this was going on? Like, I know you don't like this shoe, but I have to put her in this because this is a big pain point for her, literally.
Yeah.
And the teacher was like, I had no idea she was going through that. So I think really more than what you can see, it's about checking in with the dancers and making sure that they are feeling like they are in a safe space to be able to tell you what's going on, and also keep asking the right questions. Like, is there anything that's bothering you in the knees and the ankles, hips, whatever? Like, what do we need to strengthen? What do we need to do? Like, do we need to see a professional? Things like that. Like, just don't ignore problems.
I love that. That's a simple answer, and it is so true. It is so true. Just stay in communication with each other. And I really empower my dancers to talk to their parents often. I know dancers, especially when you're younger, it feels like I want to do this on my own. This is my thing. But your parents are there. They are your number one supporters and fans. They are literally the ones that are making this happen for you. And they want the best for you. And this is like an open channel of communication that needs to keep happening. And it will as you get older too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Definitely.
So tell everyone how they can get in touch with you. Tell them how to find your Pointe shop. How would they go about booking things with you? Give us all the details.
So it's very easy. It's info@thepointeshop.com. And I'm sure everyone that's listening to this knows that Pointe is spelled with an E. Yes. The shop is spelled normally. So you can email us at info@thepointeshop.com for any kind of bookings, questions, whatever, general inquiries. And if you just have a really quick question, you can find us at the Pointe Shop on Instagram. We're very active on there. And if you need to reach out to me personally, they can DM me on my personal Instagram, which is at Josephine Y. Lee.
Awesome. And guys, I suggest if you are local in Southern California and you haven't checked out the Pointe Shop yet, I suggest that you make an appointment and just do it. Just do it. You're investing so much time in your body, and this is a huge aspect of it. So just next time, ask for Christmas. This is the perfect time, guys. Ask for Christmas for a fitting and go in and make sure that you're wearing the best shoes. You can, next time you get a pair of Pointe shoes, you go with what they suggest and you give it a try for something else. And if you are not local to the Southern California area, then reach out to them and find out where Josephine is going to be. Figure it out. If you're interested, parents, you guys have so much power in the studios, in a great way. Get other moms who are interested, have them listen to the podcast, and then go to your teachers and say, we would like to make this happen. Would you support us? Would you let the space be open to this? And all you have to do is get those 15 dancers. It's so easy. So parents, you have a lot of power in this, and you're going to make a huge difference in your dancers' career, body, happiness, life, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, fantastic. Okay. Well, we're here at the end. So do you have anything else you'd like to share with the dance world right now? Do you feel pretty complete?
Yeah, I think I think we pretty much covered it, but we actually are all over in California. So we're in Southern California, but we also have a brick and mortar in Northern California where I primarily fit.
That's right.
So,
okay.
So I'm primarily in Northern California right now.
Okay. Awesome. Oakland, right?
That's right.
Okay.
In Oakland. So if you guys look up the Pointe Shop in Oakland, or if you go to our website, you'll see both of our brick and mortar locations. Mm-hmm. And Oregon and Washington is becoming 2 states that I visit quite often. So
awesome.
Pacific Northwest as well.
Awesome. Okay, guys, check her out. Check her out. Well, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing your wisdom. And make sure, guys, that you go check out the Pointe Shop on Instagram, because they have tons of videos. Like, you will learn so much just by being there, and you'll be more educated for the next time you go in for a pointe shoe fitting, whether it's with the Pointe Shop or someone else. Thank you so much, Josephine, for being on the podcast. That was so enlightening. Guys, what I have found with pointe shoe fitters is that, 1, a lot of them aren't that great. 2, the ones that are really good, most of the time they work for a specific brand. So they work for Block or Freed or Capezio or whatever it is, and they know that shoe really well. I have found it very difficult to find somebody who knows such a wide range of shoes and feet and can tell you which shoe would fit you best, not just what one of this brand or that brand, but all across the board. So her knowledge and what she's trained her staff to do really is a very unique skill. And I'm so happy that she could come on and share some of that information on the podcast. I suggest you check out her Instagram. And I really, really do suggest keep tabs on her. And if she's somewhere near you guys, it's very much worth you going and getting a session with her, getting an appointment and getting your shoes fit. So last week we did a giveaway for the podcast. You could leave a review on iTunes or share a screenshot on Instagram, and you were entered to win either a $50 Visa gift card or a flexibility and turnout course from me. Those winners are on Instagram today, so make sure you head over and check out if you were the winner over on my Instagram, Align Fitness by Allie. And it's never too late to leave us a review on iTunes, or any shares on Instagram are always appreciated. As you guys are starting to get a sense, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, I really am working to find people with great knowledge in the dance world to come on and give you guys free advice. It's fantastic. It's everything I want to give you. So the best thing you could do to say thank you to myself and your guests that you're listening to is to share a review or share the podcast and give us a little shout out so that more dancers and more parents get the opportunity to hear their wonderful and informative information. Now, lastly, the thing that I'm loving this week is my mindset on drinking water. We all know that water is very important. You cannot survive without water very long. And there's a mixed number of how much water you should be drinking a day, but I think the rough average of what I see and hear is that you should be drinking about half of your body weight in ounces a day. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be drinking 50 ounces of water a day. Now, if you're an athlete or you exercise, that number goes up quite a bit. And that takes you closer to your full body weight in ounces of water. Now, I love water. I actually like the way water tastes. I'm maybe a little bit of a water snob. I don't buy fancy water, but I do have a filter that I love at home. But I just love the way water tastes. And I realize that most people are not that way. So I feel really lucky that I enjoy water. But that doesn't mean that I'm great at always every single day drinking all of my water. I get busy teaching, and when I have 6 or 7 people back to back, that means that's 7 hours I'm going without a break. And I get really into our sessions, and sometimes I have to be like, okay, go take a sip of water, take 5 seconds not to talk, and just take a sip of water. I have a little canteen that I got from Costco. They're all over the place. I mean, any canteen works for me. But this one is 40 ounces, which is just the perfect size. It's not too small. It's not too big. And I love it. It helps me keep track of how much water. But what I've realized as I've been doing more computer work, doing this podcast and making videos, is that I don't take the second to take the water bottle up to my mouth. Also, while I'm recording this podcast, if I was like glugging while I was talking, that wouldn't work, right? So somebody gave me a little convertible or retractable glass straw last year. And when I got it, I thought, this is really impractical. I'm never going to use this. I am all about not using plastic straws, and I can totally see what a waste that is in our world and how quickly we individually could use so many. But one, guys, I don't like paper straws. I just don't. They like melt in your mouth kind of, and I love the idea of them, but I would just rather not use them. And then 2, I was so worried that this glass one was going to break, and I thought, where am I going to put this and how am I going to use it? And it's going to be dirty, and then that's going to be my purse. But I have been pleasantly surprised. I pulled it out of necessity so that I could drink some water while I'm doing this podcast. And it has been so nice. I've even started using it for my daily harvest smoothies. So instead of using a plastic straw, I'm using that. And as soon as I'm done, I just run into the bathroom and I rinse it out so that it doesn't get all gross. And I'm just so happy with myself. Happy because I think that life is super busy. It's hard to stick to our habits sometimes. We have these goals, and little things like not having a straw can literally derail your goal. It's so silly, but it can. And it's up to me, it's up to you to find the small things that make your goals doable, that make you able to reach your goal. So for you, having a little retractable straw in your purse may not help you reach your water drinking goals at all. But for me, it does. Figure out what your goals are and what little obstacles are in your way, and figure out how to solve them. Once you identify what they are, then it's so easy to make them. So if you're not reaching a goal, figure out what your obstacles are and brainstorm with a friend how you can make that obstacle get out of the way so you can reach your goals. So on that note, I'm going to go grab some water. I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful week, and we'll be back here on Wednesday for your next episode of Beyond the Point.